Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the Express podcast. It is raining here today, so it's the perfect opportunity to get cozy and sit down and record this episode. I actually put out a poll on my Instagram stories asking all of you what you wanted this next episode to be on, and this was the one with the most votes. So we are diving into the winter arc, which is your opportunity for a mid-year reset to refocus, realign, and rebuild. Because if you are anything like myself and probably everyone that voted in this poll, you are also shooketh that it is July. We have officially crossed the halfway point for the year. And honestly, I feel like Christmas was just a couple of weeks ago. I said to a friend the other day, I should have just left my decorations up because at this point, I'm going to have to put them back up any day now. So I feel like this has been the fastest moving year of my adult life by far. But aside from time moving really quickly, from a lot of the conversations that I've had with people, myself included, 2025 just has not quite gone according to plan. And that doesn't have to mean challenges and curveballs and plot twists, although for many people it has been that as well. But it might just be that you're sitting here and not quite in the reality that you thought you would be in by the time we moved into the second half of the year. And maybe some of those goals or intentions that you set for yourself at the beginning haven't quite come to fruition yet. And so I think this episode is going to be really timely for all of us to just have that opportunity to check in. Where do we want to invest our energy, our time, and our focus as we step into the second half of the year? I know for myself, this year definitely hasn't gone according to plan. And the irony of that for me is I chose God's plan as my word for the year. And wow, have I had to surrender to that over and over and over and over again. I'm probably going to have to record an entire podcast on that alone at the end of the year. But as for the first half of the year, I turned 40 on the 5th of January. And that is obviously a milestone birthday in itself, but it was actually one that I was quite looking forward to because I had so many incredible women around me really hyping up turning 40 and how incredible it was. Just saying how much more confident you felt in yourself, how much you didn't care about certain things anymore, and how liberated you felt. They were telling me that their 40th year or their 40s in general were the best they've ever had. And so I was really excited, especially, and I know this is a silly example, but I love the Kardashians. And I was watching the show and Khloe was also turning 40 and she had this incredible birthday and she was just saying in the episode of how excited she was to turn 40 and close the door on her 30s because of the challenges that she had faced in that decade. And I was like, yeah, me too, Khloe. I can't wait to close the door on some of the things that have happened in my 30s and just start a fresh decade. And so I had all of this anticipation and expectation on how this year was really going to play out. But what I didn't expect in crossing the threshold of my birthday was to be hit with this wave of grief and sadness at how I thought my life would look by the time I turned 40. And there were some really significant things that were missing from my life when I had that milestone birthday arrive. And I thought by this age that I would be married. I thought I would have a family. There's certain career milestones I thought I would reach by this time. And I just thought there were some significant boxes that I would have checked before I turned the age that I am now, and not from a place of societal expectation, because trust me, I have analyzed that of, is this actually my desire or just do I think I need to have these things? But it's actually from a genuine place of want and desire for my life. And so it was really disappointing coming into this year, to be quite honest with you. And I think that was then quickly compounded by the fact that I had to call an ambulance to my house on the 7th of January for a gastric episode that I had connected to this sort of gut challenge that I've had for the last couple of years on and off. And so that triggered off a new wave of investigations around that. And I was just like, oh man, is this 40? Like I'm already calling an ambulance to my house. Like this is not good. And then on top of that, I had a really fizzer of a birthday party. I'd put a lot of time and energy into organizing it, even though I really didn't want to do anything for my birthday, but everyone was sort of saying, you've got to do something. It's a milestone. You've got to celebrate. So I put all this effort into organizing it. And then on the day, for so many different reasons, over half the party couldn't come. And so that was disappointing. And then I was also just in this really big personal identity shift behind the scenes and letting go of my old business model and stepping into the unknown and stepping into something completely new. And although there was a lot of excitement around that, there was also sadness of letting go of what I had built up until that point. So I would just say that the first few months of the year were really about letting go of what I thought life would look like, of what I thought I was building, of what I thought my business would look like, and really stepping out in faith into the unknown. I reshaped my business ecosystem, my offers, my messaging, my branding, and there was a lot of energy and time that went into that. And then also launching 2 brand new offers back to back as well. And it just took way longer than I thought it would. What felt like it was going to take 3 months took 6. So there was just a lot of timelines changing and things moving out and just feeling like the momentum was a little bit like moving through sand, just wasn't moving as quickly as I would have liked. And there was definitely just a lot of dismantling and rebuilding and some big emotions that came with that in the first few months of the year. And I also got baptized over Easter, which really marked a new level and declaration in my faith and my walk with God and giving my life to Christ in such a public way. And since then, I would say that there has been even more surrender that's taken place and also a big internal shift that's really come in the last few weeks as we entered a time of prayer and fasting at my church that really just gave me so much of the revelation and the breakthrough that I was looking for in that first part of the year. However, I would say that I've sort of landed in this space of not being 100% clear what the next steps look like, but more of a solidified internal landscape and a faith to keep stepping out into the unknown. I could do a whole podcast on this alone, but I would say that if you are unclear on your next steps, go back to the last step that God asked you to take, because chances are you haven't taken it yet. But hopefully this winter arc is going to be the positive plot twist that 2025 so needs so that you can step into intentionally designing this second half and building a solid foundation that's going to act as a springboard when those warmer months kick in and the momentum builds from that place. Because a winter arc is defined as a period where individuals focus on personal development, health, and fitness goals, using the colder, darker months as a time for inward reflection and habit formation. It's a proactive approach to self-improvement, aiming to establish healthy routines and achieve goals. So as a community, I'm going to invite you into these 5 areas of focus over the next 2 months in order to do exactly that. I'm going to be dropping some extra accountability in my Instagram broadcast channel. So if you want a little bit of support as you move through these next 2 months, come and join us there, and I'll leave the link in the show notes for you. And if you're in the Northern Hemisphere listening to this and it's summer for you right now, you can absolutely still join along. Everybody is welcome to hit the reset button and give themselves an opportunity to focus to enter the second half of the year with the momentum that they're looking for. So let's dive into the 5 areas of focus for our winter arc. The first thing that we're going to do is reflect, because we can't rebuild what we haven't reviewed. So the very first question I want you to ask yourself is, what is your intention for this winter arc? Because that's going to really dictate some of the things that you'll put into motion in order to execute to make the most of this time together. Mine is that I really want to establish a firmer foundation in my habits and routines that are going to give me the confidence and endurance to run the race of my calling. Yours might be that you want to land in the next season with an increase in physical health or focus or clarity around your next steps and your goals. It might be that you want to achieve a specific thing over the next 2 months, but finding that area of focus for you so that you have motivation to continue this challenge over the next few weeks. The next question you're going to reflect on is, what has worked so far this year and what hasn't? What are you bringing with you into the second half of the year, and what are you leaving behind? For me, I think the biggest thing that hasn't worked this year is just not allowing myself enough time to truly rest and enough imaginative spaciousness to receive the next steps or receive creative clarity. I definitely have neglected that step in my own create like an athlete methodology just a little bit because I think I've had just a longer season than normal of output and not enough input because there was the big messaging shift and the rebrand and the 2 new offers that came out. There was just a lot happening in that first part of the year where it was very much in season, pre-season, transition season, in season, pre-season. And so now I've sort of been in this extended off season as a result. And so stepping into the second half of the year, I really want to give myself more opportunity for that infilling and that downtime. What has worked this year though is just overthinking my creative execution less. I feel like I have had a bigger season of output because I have just fully allowed myself to dial in a little bit around my structure of how I execute and giving myself dedicated space to do that. And so I think that is something that worked really well that I'd love to carry into the second half, but just with the learnings that I gained in that first half and making it even more dialed in for the second half to get some of the things that I want created done. I also think that what has worked really well this year is inviting God into the process. And that is something that I want to commit to doing even more in this second half of the year. The second thing that we're going to do in our winter arc is realign what is derailing our next steps. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, we recently went into a time of prayer and fasting at my church, and the clarity that emerged from that was incredible. I also did a 30-day matcha fast at the beginning of the year, and that was because I recognized that I had this unhealthy dependency on that to fuel my creativity rather than leaning on God and bringing God into the process and allowing myself to be created through. It was really this sort of artificial stimulation. This is also something that we did in my recent experience, Sprint Create Like an Athlete, where we identified what was the one thing that they needed to remove in order to lock in and focus for that experience. And most people chose their phone, unsurprisingly. That was also mine. But what came from those 4 days together from removing that was so much clarity, so much focus, so much inspiration, people reconnecting with their families, lowering their stress levels. It was phenomenal. So I would really encourage you to lean into recognizing what is the thing that is going to be a barrier for you to really make the most of the second half of the year. Maybe it's caffeine, maybe it's reaching for your phone first thing in the morning and scrolling, maybe it's chocolate, maybe it's TV at nighttime. But what's the one thing that you know that if you removed it, even for a short time, would change the game for you and give you back your energy, your time, and your focus for what actually really matters? I would commit to doing this for at least 5 days, but if you want to go the whole 2 months of the winter arc, more power to you. Mine is really coming back into my commitment of no phone until midday. I was in a really great rhythm with that up until probably about a month ago, and the wheels have really fallen off that. I definitely have noticed that. But what I know about removing that is it really allows me to spend that first part of the morning in prayer and also in dedication to the things that are really going to set me up powerfully for the day. And also just not having my creativity diluted by going and absorbing the voices of the world. I really lock in and create before I consume, which not only allows me to get more things done, but they're of a higher quality as well. So that's mine. If you want to declare yours, feel free to send me a message on Instagram at kirstenmorrison.co and let me know what you've chosen. Something I find is really helpful with this is not just looking at it from the perspective of what am I fasting from, but really looking at what are you fasting for? Clarity, inspiration, energy, focus, time with loved ones, more intimacy with God. Decide what you're letting go of, but make sure you know what you're doing it for. The third thing that we're going to do in our winter arc together is to recommit to our healthy habits. And I'm going to keep it 100 with you. This is an area that I have slipped off with again in the last few weeks. And I think realistically, that is just the compounding effect of not taking enough rest, right? Like when you land in these seasons where you're really depleted, you don't have as much energy for the things that really matter and for those daily habits and rituals. And it's so much easier to let yourself off the hook and let things slide. And for me, the first first place that I notice that is in my evening wind down routine. I go from keeping my phone in the bathroom and apps locked off at 9 p.m. and getting an early night and making sure that I'm ending that last part of the day with reading or positive content, to scrolling TikTok until 11 o'clock at night and sending my friends memes, like just staying up later and then waking up later and then being more sluggish with my movement and not eating as healthy a breakfast and maybe skipping a walk or two and just kind of being in this really ineffective pattern where I'm then also overriding my opal, which locks off my social media, and giving myself 15 minutes to look at this and 15 minutes to look at that. And it just is this domino effect that starts to creep in across the whole day. And it really does affect my imagination and my creativity and the quality of work that I do when I'm in that state where I'm just allowing myself to indulge in all of these little habits that stack up to completely derail my day. So I want you to keep this simplified and not commit to 45 things that you've got to do in order to have your day locked in. Really just keep it to 3 to 5 things that you're recommitting to in this particular part of our winter arc. So for me, I'm going back to having my apps locked off by 9 p.m. Phone is in the bathroom. We're keeping our social media locked off until midday so that I can create before I consume. And then I am recommitting to my practice of a minimum of 10 minutes of moving my body outside and above my daily walks. So I've decided actually that I'm going to do a 28-day Pilates reformer board challenge at home. And so that's going to keep me accountable for the next month to really restore that to be a habit. And I'm back on my supplement game. I just did a restock so that I have everything I need in order for optimal health. And also the final thing that I'm going to do is recommit to my physical health appointments. And that can look like physio, going for a soak session, an infrared sauna, but just giving myself the opportunity to at least once a month have that infilling of physical restoration and nourishment, because I find that it really does make all the difference. So phone locked off in the evening, that's going to give me that opportunity for a beautiful wind down routine. No social media until midday, 10 minutes minimum of movement Monday to Friday, daily supplements, and one nourishing thing for my physical body per month. So that's 5 for me. You're deciding 3 to 5 things that you're recommitting to in order to build these healthy habits, because it really is the micro habits that stack up that allow us to achieve our macro goals. It really does build our character, our energy, and our focus for the things that really matter. So on that note, the 4th thing that we are going to do together in our winter arc is to rebuild our goals, because you might have made plans or set intentions at the start of the year that don't fully speak to where you're going next. So the first thing that you're going to do is assess the goals you made at the start of the year and see what ones need to go and what ones are you keeping. I would really dial this in again and really choose 3 to 5 things that you want to achieve by the end of the year. And then considering what are the steps that you need to take in order to make sure that they happen. What can you learn from the first half of the year about maybe why some of the things that you wanted to take place didn't happen, and make sure that it does in this next half of the year. I have a few things in mind for myself in this particular area that I won't share yet, but what I would say is that the entirety of that, or the priority that they get to be created in, doesn't feel super clear yet in order to be executed. So something I'm really focusing on in the next couple of weeks is to really create the space to hear from God, because something that I am really committed to in this second half of the year is bringing him more into the process and allowing him to direct my steps rather than everything having to be my own idea or my own will or coming from my own strength, because I'm really recognizing how ineffective that is. So if you are also not entirely clear on what this second half looks like for you or what your next step should be, my recommendation is just to take the time and space to find out. Don't just chat GBT a suggested goal plan and jump into it haphazardly, because it is absolutely going to backfire at some point in the process. The final thing that we're going to focus on in our winter arc together is to romanticize your life. And I'm not sure why I sung that, but maybe that's part of my romanticizing. I'm going to get into some musical numbers around the house. But honestly, the biggest reason that we feel time moves so quickly is because we are not present to the moment. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but if you've driven somewhere and then you kind of pull up and you're in shock and you're kind of looking around like, how did I get here? I don't even remember the journey. I do not remember the drive. That is because we were on autopilot, right? And a lot of us, myself included, are living our life this way most of the time. And we're shocked that it's July. We're looking around, how did I get here? It's because we were on autopilot and in this do mode so much that we missed the journey and we weren't actually present to all of the moments that led us here. And I know for myself, I'm always looking for what's next? What do I have to do? Something to fill my time. And recently I was on a prayer walk and I was saying to God, what's next? What do you want me to create? What's the next move? And I just kept hearing Psalm 46, be still and know I am God. Every time I ask that question, be still and know I'm God. What am I doing? Be still and know I'm God. What is it? Be still and know I'm God. I was like, okay, loud and clear. I'm going to be still and know that you are God. So I want you to pick 2 to 3 things that you are going to do to bring more presence into the second half of the year. And this could be as simple as putting your diffuser on in your office to bring a beautiful smell to anchor you into the day. Maybe it's having a bath once a week. Maybe it's going for a 30-minute walk without your phone and actually being present with the nature around you. Maybe it's taking yourself on a solo inspiration date once a month. Maybe it's making time to actually catch up with a friend in person. For me, I'm going to do at least 1 walk a week without distraction. I'm going to do an inspiration date with myself and giving myself a few hours a week to just be and readable. So slow down, take notice of what's happening around you, and I promise that you are going to see miracles that you might have missed otherwise. A prime example of this is I was on a walk a couple of days ago and I did not have my phone. I was just looking straight down this pathway and a kangaroo, like right at the end of the path, just jumped across. Something I would have absolutely missed if I was on my phone. There is truly so much beauty around us if we just look up and away from our phones. So that is our winter arc focus. To recap, we are reflecting on what is our intention for this experience over the next 2 months. What are we bringing into the second half of the year and what are we leaving behind? We're realigning what's draining our time, energy, and focus. We're recommitting to healthy habits. We're rebuilding our goals and we're romanticizing our life. I can't wait to hear what you've decided to focus on in these particular areas and what is transformed for you as a result. I think winter really teaches us that beautiful things come from being planted in the ground first. And this is our planting season so that we can sow a beautiful harvest in the months to come. Keep it simple, keep it true. And if you want a little bit of extra support around this, come and join us in the Call to Create broadcast channel over on Instagram. I'll drop the link in the show notes for you. But may this be the plot twist that you have been waiting for, hoping for, and wishing for this year. And I will see you in the next episode.